Hey guys, welcome to Gear Facts. One thing I haven't talked about much is that I used to be a bit of a semi-professional artist. That's my stall at the Valley Markets in Brisbane, and this is the kind of work I was doing. I even won a prize when I was working for the Australian Quarantine and Inspection Service. The drawings look complicated, but really it just comes down to drawing lots of little things over and over again.
Okay, so we've got our basic house. Everything is drawn in isometric. You start off with a V, a vertical, parallel lines here, parallel lines there. This is a very rough one. And you've got your basic cube shape there. I might put a couple of windows in like this. Just draw a little windowsill there. Maybe another window here. Just a bit of really basic shading. And a triangle at the front. And then you've got your basic house shape. I usually do my roofs like this, just to give a sense of texture that separates it from the walls. You might have a door as well. And then we might put a bit of grass around the edge or something like that. Maybe just a tree, just a basic, school kid type tree. Just a couple of brackets facing each other. And then some blobs at the top. That's really all it takes. A little bit darker around the sides and bottom. And then before you know it, it looks reasonably three-dimensional. Or you might be saying that looks like a child's picture, which it kind of does. And this is my point. I'm not a brilliant artist, but when you put 1,000 of these on one page, each one of them looking slightly different, it starts to become a really engrossing bit of artwork. So a few other shapes might be, obviously, a house facing a different direction. And you'll find you get very quick at doing these 6 basic lines or 7 basic lines. I'll have an open door this time. And maybe a long window. I found that can be quite effective. So just vary things slightly. We could even put a chimney up here. And you'll find which features come together quickly and which ones are a little bit more difficult. Any little discrepancies or problems with the perspective or the detail or mistakes that you've made will get obscured by the overall complexity of the design when you've filled up your entire page. Something else could be like a road going along the back here. And I've made a mistake here because I was going to draw a bridge over this. So draw my bridge, and the mistake is that the lines of the road are going to show through. But that's alright, everything's fixable. Just draw the rest of the bridge in. Just be a bit rough with your lines. Blend them together. The bridge doesn't have to go anywhere, it's just a bridge. We're not talking about a representation of reality here. All we want to end up with is an image that's rich, complex, and worthy of holding people's attention. And if they notice mistakes in it, then all the better. It's more to talk about with your artwork. So let's just draw some rough lines over this, and maybe a few vertical lines as well. Maybe just to give it a bit of a stony look or a woody look even. And top the walls off there. Now even by my standards, this one's turning out pretty badly, but like I said, I'm just doing it really rough here, just to give you guys an idea of how I'm doing my artwork. And again, I stress, I'm not a great artist. This is all about patience, repetition, density, and complexity. Okay, so over here we might have a tower that's perhaps a little bit taller. Tall towers are quite easy to draw. Basically just start with your one vertical stick right in the middle and draw a kind of an arrow in your downward lines there. Keep following that isometric perspective. I often draw nice thin windows with the towers. That one actually ended up being a very short tower. But if you look up here, I might draw a taller tower. Again, more or less just triangles. So let's get our details in the roof. Maybe put a little peak at the top. And we've made sure it doesn't go over this house in front, so we've got some sense of depth to the whole picture there. I might even have the edge of its door showing at the bottom there. I'll strengthen up this line here just to show that the house is separate. If you get any uncomfortable overlaps or things like that, just strengthen the line of the object that's in the foreground. I should point out that I've made one fundamental mistake here. I've started right in the middle of the page. Really what you should do if you're drawing a picture like this is start with your first house right at the bottom of the page here. Work your way up the page, you won't be accidentally running over houses in the foreground. and you won't be having to cover up mistakes with depth of field as you build your picture up and cover the entire page. Having said that though, sometimes mistakes in depth of field can be a really cool thing. Just check out the artwork of MC Escher, for example, a massively more advanced artist than myself, and you would definitely be familiar with at least some of his drawings in which perspective takes on a whole meaning or loses all its meaning. I'll leave you to look that up yourself, MC Escher. So have a think about what other kinds of buildings you've seen, or what buildings that you would like to exist. For example, maybe a kind of a building here with a big hole in it. Okay, so yeah, you might have you'll have to figure out how to make a hole in a building look good, and what might be going in or coming out of that hole. I could have a boat coming out of the hole, for example. Just funny little details that people will notice. So you can be as realistic or as fantastical as you like with these kinds of drawings. Now a detail like that I might have spent maybe 15 minutes on if I was doing my final draft of a drawing, but there I just did the roughest of rough sketches. Okay, and so yeah, more buildings in the background. And so here we hit the problem. If I've drawn buildings in the background already, then I can't really go over this area here. I can't draw new buildings over the top of that unless I liquid paper things out or just get really rough with my drawing, and that kind of, for me, ruins the continuity of a picture a little bit. Remembering, of course, that art's not just about skill, or in my case, patience. It's also about what comes out of your mind. Now I'm going to use this canvas to get started on a final draft of a drawing like this. I'll just do the drawing in short bursts. I won't sit down and do it all in one go, as I have done in the past before, sit down for 9 hours and non-stop draw all day. I've been known to do that. But what I'm going to do with this one is just when I have a spare few minutes here and there over the next week or so, I'm just going to draw a little bit more. You're going to see it in sped up motion on the camera, and we'll watch the page fill itself up over the next few days. Okay, so my hand's getting pretty tired there. Let's turn around, zoom in a little bit and have a look at where we're at. So I just want to tell you about a couple of the things that I think are turning out well in this picture and some of the things that aren't turning out so well. First of all, ink pens look great on canvas, but this particular one is a little bit fine, so it's coming up very, very scratchy, and that's not really doing the picture any favors. It's also very wet ink too, so as my hand moves, I'm getting quite a lot of smudginess. That could actually turn out really well, and it could help with shading and that kind of thing. It remains to be seen. But the bottom line is, as I said before, all of those problems and bad details are going to get swallowed up in the overall complexity of the picture. Another thing where I think I might run into a bit of trouble too is that my shading on the side of the wall that's facing this way is probably a little bit too intense. So I don't want to have pure white light wall against quite a heavily shaded wall, especially with that really scratchy look. My experience tells me that that's going to come out looking a little bit imbalanced. But again, let's just see how we go. There are ways around it too. I could just add a whole lot more detail just to distract the eye away from that little bit of imbalance. There are a few perspective problems that I've run into along the way, but again, very much swallowed up by the detail, and really a few rough lines will generally hide most bits of bad perspective. Over here I tried to draw a bit of a turret roof on this tower right here. It went completely wrong, but it turns out as I've drawn it's got completely smudged anyway, so it's starting to look a little bit more like a ruin, and that's fine. So as I go, I'm just scanning my mind for any details I've seen in buildings that might be easy to draw and might be easy to incorporate to keep each individual building looking different and keep the overall picture interesting to look at. But my hand's tired now, so I'll come back to this another day.
Okay, so here's our finished product, or our almost finished product. I've covered the entire canvas after a few days of doing little pieces of drawing here and there. There are still some little empty spaces though that will need to be addressed, so if you look at the picture and see that some bits seem a bit empty, you're going to have to think up some more details to put in there. In this particular one I'm just putting some pipes running down these walls. Don't forget the shading. Shading looks great on little three-dimensional objects like pipes. Just darken up the edges there. A little split system air conditioner there, because it was all I could think of to fit in that space. This wall now looks a bit bare, so I'm just going to put some spikes running down the wall there. Once again, it's all I could think of. The shading in the tunnels didn't look quite right, so what I'm doing is adding a bit more shady detail into this particular tunnel here. You can see the ribs running up the inside of the tunnel there just to give it a more three-dimensional effect. Adding a few details like ladders, an extra house if there's too much white space, just to cover it over. Windows, of course. Extra windows up here. Once again, we just want to fill up those gaps. And of course, trees always make excellent fillers as well. And here is the finished product. It gets quite fun in this stage because you can use your graphics software to manipulate the image any way you like. You can transform it, you can put all sorts of filters over it, but no matter what you change in this stage, it's still your own artwork and still something that you can be proud of. I hope you found this video useful or interesting. Thanks for watching Gear Facts. Please hit like or subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time.